All right. Then. Well, I suppose we should probably start with the sprint stuff.
Sprint.
I think Dan wasn't there. I think we did pretty well with the sprint, to be honest. We may not have made a lot of code progress, but I think we made a fair bit of discussion and testing and such like. Steve, your 1317 pull requests is broken since I merged Jacktron.
Yeah, I just saw that. I'll do that right now.
I suppose the biggest discussion that we probably need to have is stuff surrounding 1318.
The API?
Where most of the API discussion has been, and no, Dan, can't hear you. Oh no, now there's two of him. There we are, I can see you and hear you now.
Good stuff. Yeah, I don't know what that was all about.
Okay, so before we get into, well, most of the discussion on 1318 has not actually been to do with the API that I am suggesting in 1318, mostly been changes to it. So is this everyone's way of generally agreeing with the API that's there? Like the structure of the submodule and such like.
Well, did you see? Oh, here we go. Could you summarize all the stuff that followed mine? My suggestion, which I have not read.
Well, no, the first, before we get into that discussion that's going on in the comments, please take a look at my original comment and the stuff that is contained in this notebook, which is in the second comment. And do people agree with the API that is there, specifically calling the class, having a submodule called data retriever, calling the instance of the factory class Fido, having the attributes in the data retriever namespace, having the time, instrument, and wavelength attributes in the data retriever namespace, and having VSO and JSOC in the data retriever namespace pointing to their respective attributes, as opposed to the submodules.
Well, so you want to bring those out just so it's easier for people to jump to JSOC and VSO, and if they need to, or?
Yes, basically. Bearing in mind that this data retriever, as is implemented here, this data retriever is the supported API for querying JSOC and VSO. We should probably make that as easy as possible. I like the idea of being able to get all of this with one import.
Yeah, it just undermines Fido a little bit that you're providing VSO right next to it, right?
Well, no. What do you mean? What?
Well, most people are probably going to do VSO searches, and if VSO is right there, then why use Fido at all?
No, so the VSO right there is specifically the attributes. You can't get to
the attributes
through that.
Sorry, it's the attributes. Okay.
If you want VSO client, you have to do data retriever.clients.VSO client.
Yeah. Okay.
So I missed 30 seconds of that. Where do the other attributes live that are not here?
In data retriever.VSO and data retriever.JSON.
Oh, okay.
Because they are the ones that. See, now I'm not entirely convinced at this point, but my opinion on the matter is that they should be. If you use something from .VSO or something from .JSON, you basically should be ensuring the fact that that client services your query.
Yeah. Of course.
I don't know whether that is actually true for the VSO or not. It's definitely true for JSOC, because I know for a fact that the JSOC attributes are weird, and the query syntax is completely different. But I think it's also true for the VSO, but I haven't been through all the clients to check it.
That's fine with me.
So basically, this implies that if in the future another client crops up and wants to use a VSO attribute that is currently in VSO, we move that attribute out of VSO and put it into the main data retriever space. Or we copy it into that client's own attribute space. But the latter still breaks the thing that if you use something from .vso, you're always using VSO.
Yeah.
So basically, to maintain that rule that if you use an attribute from .vso, the VSO client will service your query, we have to be willing to move stuff out of that namespace. By the way, the wavelength, instrument, and time attributes that are outside that namespace are also being back imported into VSO. So that if you import VSO, you can still use the old. Old scripts have not broken. I have maintained backwards compatibility so far.
Is there a reason why we don't want to mix them all up together and just, we do the hard work. They use whatever attributes they want, and we figure it out, right?
It just makes the namespace very large. Makes it
Yeah.
harder to do tab completion.
Is that a problem? The large namespace?
No, not necessarily. I kind of like the idea that I don't know. What are we talking? The problem comes with having it all in one is if there are specific ones. So JSOC, for instance, is weird, and we could have a client like it where we require where we can't make one attribute service both clients, where we need a specific search attribute for JSOC which has the same name or a similar name to the one that's in VSO.
Yeah, and I guess you don't want people to mix attributes, like a JSOC attribute and a VSO attribute cannot be mixed.
Exactly. So I kind of like the idea of keeping attributes that can only be serviced by one client in that namespace.
Yeah. Yeah.
What would happen if you tried to mix attributes? Would it just break?
Yes, it'll go, can't find a client to service this query.
Mm-hmm.
But it won't be self-describing. If they were all in one namespace, that would be very opaque to the user.
Yes.
Like at the moment, if you specified a JSOC and a VSO attribute together, it would break. But at least you'd have some indication in the search why it's breaking. You'd be like, you're using a VSO and JSOC attribute together, that's obviously not going to work.
Yeah. Yeah, this is pretty good with me. Maybe we should make clear, where are the time wavelength and instrument attributes? Where do they actually live?
Inside VSO attributes.
Oh, they're just okay.
Now, there's a reason for that. I tried to move them out, and everything broke. Basically, we can't move them out without breaking backwards compatibility for JSOCs, for VSO searches. So at the moment, everything I've done here maintains the same 0.5 API for VSO. So if users are running old scripts with VSO search, it will still work. If we want to move the attributes out of the VSO attributes and into the net.attrs namespace, then we are going to break the current VSO API.
It's not worth it. No, it's not worth it right now.
Yeah, that was my thinking as well. I left that alone. I currently
Otherwise, we'll never finish anything.
I mean, it's a really simple fix. The reason that it breaks is because you get circular import, because you can't import, because the the top level net attrs module imports the VSO attributes as VSO, and you can't have the VSO attributes importing time, instrument, and wavelength from the top one, because you end up in a circular import loop, and there's no way.
So the next time to make such a major change is going to be when we have Helio or some other major repository of data that we need to really think about hard. I don't think we should be breaking stuff. You have to...
Bearing in mind that it's totally opaque to the user where they actually... Yeah. I don't see any reason to break it just to move 100 lines of code around in our code base.
Yeah, agreed.
Like if we ever find out if Stephen's got funding to do the what was it, the VHO or something like that, or add another virtual observatory to
the particle stuff.
Yeah, the particle stuff. Then that would be, that would be a good time to sort of really try and work out what's the.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm pretty happy with this API at the moment.
Yeah.
This is the time to break APIs in some ways. If we are going to do it, this is the time. But I don't know.
0.6 is so far behind now.
Yeah, sure, but actually, it's not like it will take me very long to break it. I can break it in 5 minutes. It's just the choice is, do we want to keep it? And I think we should, because I don't see any reason to break everybody's scripts for fun. That's the way to piss off your users pretty quick.
Yeah, that's fine with me.
Right, so now we get on to the fun discussion, which is different things. Specifically, 2 things. The first is using time range instead of the time attribute.
Yes, because having both is extremely confusing.
Using time range instead of the time attribute, and Florian didn't immediately cut me down on this point when I was chatting to him in IRC earlier, basically involves moving way too much code from net into time. I don't like it at all. It will make things way more complicated than it needs to be.
Okay.
Because you need all of the logical and, logical or, the attribute multi-method parsing, and the range. Basically, we'd need to have triple inheritance in time range, or probably double inheritance in time range, like we have in VSO. So basically, time range would become the time class, as well as what it is at the moment.
Yeah.
And it's just, that's from a developer maintenance point of view, that is so not worth the API gain.
Yeah. I mean, the other thing I guess we could do, though this would be really ugly, is that time accepts a time range. But that,
at the moment, does accept.
But it should only allow you to do that. You should not be able to pass in just...
No.
Because if you pass in, as it currently stands, you're passing in these time strings, and I imagine that time, the object, is doing all the same things that time range has to do.
Yeah, well, kind of, but not really. It's copying. You're basically copying 2 lines out of the initializer function for time range, which is self._t1 equals pastime start. That's literally it. You're just running the same code through pastime. Time range isn't actually doing very much on the initializer. It chucks most of it out as pastime, which does all of the initialization for us.
But if there's an error, then that means that they're gonna run into this like weird time range error, and they're gonna be like, what? And this will be extremely confusing because they're dealing with what they thought was just the time object, and that time range is giving them an error.
Well, no. Time doesn't use time range. Time can accept time range.
Yeah.
Which it then converts. It basically, if you pass a time range into time, It takes the start time and the end time of the time range as if you'd passed in the start time and the end time of the time range. That's all it does.
Oh, wait.
It
Okay.
doesn't use the time range anywhere else.
It doesn't actually use a time range. It just takes 2 times out of it.
Yeah.
And, yeah, I see.
Okay. Well, okay, that's fine, I guess.
I see your point, kind of, that it is a bit silly we have 2 objects doing the same thing at a very high level, but in reality they're not really doing the same thing at all.
Yeah. It's just not clear. I mean, that goes back to my comment about the fact that for the API's standpoint, it might be better not to accept a list of parameters, but only allow one parameter, which is a list of, logical, a logical list, which would make it clearer to the person. So this goes to was it my comment? I forget where it was. It'd be nice if these comments were like numbered or something.
No, they are, just not in a human readable fashion.
Yeah. And that would make it much clearer for users that .time is something different than time range.
Maybe. I'm not so convinced by that argument. I don't necessarily disagree with you on the always using logical operators thing. But
I mean, it makes more sense from a search perspective. Like, you go to Google and you say this and this and this, right? Or this and this or this.
It's true.
There's one box where you put in your search.
It's true. Have you seen the last comment on the PR?
Yeah, I'm looking at it now.
Right. So I think I'm happy enough to do that. I think we should make all the documentation use everywhere show and, but actually leave the current functionality there in case someone wants to use it. I don't really think that the logic is strong enough to actually remove that functionality, when actually it's quite nice.
Well, but then okay, I don't see how it's quite nice. You're just replacing. It's not even one fewer character. It's exactly the same number of characters.
No.
The end goes to a comma. The end goes to a comma, right?
It adds the comma, removes the and removes 2 brackets.
No, you don't.
So think about this from an initializer perspective at the moment, right? So when you write this line of code in Python with the commas, what it does is before it passes the result into the search method, it will apply the logical operators before it passes it through. And then when you get into the search method, all of the arguments are logical AND. So a comma is exactly equivalent to a logical AND.
Right. Yep. Yeah, I know.
But what it means is that you can use the commas as delimiters, because things in between commas will always be evaluated before the comma is converted to an AND.
Well, yeah. If you have more complex strings, then yeah, you no longer need parentheses.
Yes. For really, really complex searches, it will make it more readable. So therefore, I think we should keep it.
Steve, why do you favor using the AND? What makes you like that more?
Because it makes it much clearer to the users that, this is a logical statement. I can create whatever versions I want. Like it's the discovery of how to use this is much clearer.
I agree that from a user rocking up and reading the documentation, that makes it more obvious what's going on. Yeah. And I think we should change the documentation to do that for that reason.
Yeah.
I have to admit not to being entirely convinced by that, but far be it from me to be the dissenting voice.
They need to know that, when you first look at the original unidown API, it seemed like all of the strength of the VSO, logical operators and stuff is gone, right? Because it's just 3 parameters.
Why? It's exactly the same API as the VSO. Literally, precisely the same API as the VSO.
No, because it kind of looks like the legacy query type.
This is exactly the same API as the VSO. Nothing has changed.
No, I know it is. I know it is, but it could look to the user like, oh shit, they've gotten rid of this stuff because now I can only put in the time, the instrument, and the whatchamacallit. Because there are just 3 parameters, right? It looks like there's 3 parameters.
You mean from a tab completion perspective? I don't understand.
No, because you don't know when you're looking at a. I'm not going to go and look in the code of the function to see whether it can accept an unlimited number of parameters, right? It's not clear when you're looking at a function how many parameters it will accept. And I generally think, well, it's a fixed number.
Unless they're enumerated. I'm struggling to understand your point here. I really am.
Because when you document a function, I think, oh, f of a, comma b, comma c. It takes 3 parameters, period.
The documentation doesn't show a, b, c. It just shows star args, which is Python code for as many as you like.
Yes.
No, but you're talking about like the docs on like sunpy.org or something like that, right?
Yeah.
It looks like it takes 3.
Right.
I agree from the point of view of like having like an explicit logical statement, because it looks like something you would write in a if clause, right? If this and that or this, then blah blah blah. So people are already used to understanding, like, you have one logical statement, right? And I want all of this. The fact that the comma is equivalent to it is confusing, because the comma we're using that equivalently to an and, but and already exists. So why can't we just use and?
Yeah.
I do agree. That is the reason why I think changing the documentation makes sense, because it makes it obvious to the user that it is and. There's no reason why we need to explain to the user that a comma is and.
Yeah.
Right.
But from a power user perspective, I think it's worth keeping the functionality there, because as we said earlier, for exceedingly complex queries, it will lead to less nested parentheses. And
Yeah, that's fine. I think we all agree. So that's
So
fine.
we're going to have 2 ands then.
yes, there are going to be effectively 2 ways to write the AND operator, but it doesn't
No,
matter.
that doesn't sound very Pythonic to me.
Because there's but one does more than the other. The comma is
So
more.
they're not ands then.
It's like it's like an and statement and brackets at the same time. And if we don't advertise it to users, we don't document it, no one is ever going to use it unless they know what they're doing.
So the comma as and is like a kid asking for ice cream with cherry on top and chocolate sauce and fudge and not
So-
the logical and.
My point is what is shown in the last comment on the pull request. Yes, that's a very simplistic example, but you can imagine a case where that gets much more complicated.
Yeah, but you could build up. You don't need to build them. You could build up the search terms like as a variable previously, and then just put it in.
Do that.
Yeah.
So is the and? So is this comma and? It mean it's a logical and. It's not like in addition to. It's like I want to do this query and I want to do this query, but they're separate queries.
Yeah, the comma,
They're actually a logical
comma
and.
is logical and
Okay.
And it gives you the parentheses as well.
it gives you the parentheses.
Yeah.
Because in the case of the first line on that comment on the PR, when Python passes that line, it will do the logical OR before it passes time and the result of that logical OR statement into search. Search will then logical AND both of those arguments together into one. So those two lines there are completely identical to one another.
That's fine. Let's just leave it in, leave the capability in, like you said, not have it documented anywhere, and then we can see if it gets out of hand and people are using the commas and people are getting confused, then we can remove it, right? We can remove that capability later on, and
it's always easier to. We might as well keep it. It's easier to back it out than trying to put it back in later or something. Also, more importantly, well, not more importantly, but also as a side note, keeping it like this maintains syntax compatibility with old VSO queries. Yeah. So someone who has a script that does a VSO query can replace VSO client.query with fido.search, and that's it. It will work exactly the same as before. Whereas if we change this syntax, they'll have to change their queries as well.
But you just said they won't know it because we won't have that documented anywhere.
Oh, no, but if they already are using it in VSO queries that they've written at the moment where we do have it documented somewhere.
Yeah, but they would have no idea to think that it would be compatible because this is a whole new thing.
Well, true, right? But
so I don't see it.
Because I just go, well, what happens if I do this? And then it'll work. We'd probably stick a note somewhere saying that it works.
No, leave it as an Easter egg.
Leave it as an Easter egg. I did want to put in an Easter egg, which is a simple alias for search called sniff. Just inside Unified Downloader Factory, just do sniff equals search. Just so that you can do fido.sniff. I refrained.
Yeah. Unfortunately, a tab completion would make people confused. There's a search and a sniff? What's the difference?
I have also, it should be noted, aliased wave to wavelength inside VSO attributes. So we're maintaining backwards compatibility that way too.
Okay. Okay, well, this looks good to me. And I fixed my PR.
The other thing that you mentioned in the sprint was forcing .wait when you do a search.
Oh, yeah. Yes, please. Please.
I looked at it, and it's a bit... You'd have to conditionally catch that on the return statement of get. It's not that pretty. I kind of like it the way it is.
No, it's totally confusing to everyone. Whenever I do it, and I haven't done a VSO search, I still get confused. I was like, what? What did it just do? Nothing. What is it? What? Where's the file?
Is that because you're conditioned by SSW idea? You think?
No, I'm conditioned.
I mean, the rest of the world has gone on with asynchronous data requests and happily lives without.
No. This is different. This is multi-threading. Python has not conditioned you to use multi-threading at all. It does the thing that you tell it to do, and when it's done, it gives you back the prompt. That's normal Python, right? That's
no, but the download process is independent of the Python session, right? At the moment, what's wrong with that?
Well, how do you know when it's finished?
Yeah.
What was that?
How do you know when it's finished?
You have to call .wait.
Yeah, which is pretty confusing, right? I mean, that doesn't seem like the thing I would call to know whether it's finished.
Yeah, but Jack, I mean, nothing else in Python. First of all, Python support for multi-threading is pretty poor. For just to show you how Python and multi-threading work together. And two, there is nothing else in Python which does this.
That's not true, but okay.
So it's neither here nor there what the support for Python and multi-threading is.
No,
the fact is that the process can go on in the background, right?
Yeah, but nothing does that. When do you encounter that any other time when you're using Python? Never. Never. Python doesn't really work that way. I mean, 99% of the time, You ask it to do something, and it will do it, and then it'll come back when it's done. And this one thing, it doesn't.
It's not entirely true. That's just your experience, the particular bits of Python you've used. There are plenty of web services which happily deal with lots of threaded asynchronous I/O. Saying that all Python doesn't do it is.
I didn't say all Python. I said 99% of Python is not multi-threaded. So.
It's not. Right.
Okay. I mean, the main issue is that it's confusing. So. I think we can, if it's a pain to make it wait by default, can we like have it, can we have it give like a little message saying like, you know, downloading in background, check blah to know when it's done. I mean, that's all we have to do. Whenever you do a .get, it would just give you that little message.
No, I think about it again. I suppose we could make it. We could make it wait by default.
Okay, that would be better.
Well, hang on. Let me have a look at the code.
Because I run into this all the time, and then I see other people be confused by this and ask me what's going on as well. It's just not the expected behavior. And so I'd rather we push the multi-threaded can go to, you know, if a user asks for it, fine. Then they know what to expect. But if they don't ask for it, it's strange. And then right away I have to figure out like how do I know when it's done? And then I have to go to the docs and try to figure out how I get that information. And I always forget how to do that, and it's painful.
We have other issues with downloading, I think, which are more important than this.
Yeah, but I thought this was an easy fix because if it is an easy fix, I say we fix it.
For what it's worth, I agree with Steve. I think it is confusing. But if you ask for it, then that's great. You know what you're expecting. You know what you're going to get. But I think the majority of users would not.
We really need a don't wait, right?
Well,
yeah,
no, what will
like
happen is the wait keyword argument and the process keyword argument will move from results.wait into fetch. So fetch will have wait equals true and progress equals true by default. And if you override wait equals true, it will not call .wait on the results before it returns.
So we should rename wait as sit and stay, right?
Sit, stay.
Yeah, I just think using multi-threading is kind of a quote-unquote power user thing, and we just want people to do it knowingly.
I think exposing the non-blocking behavior to the user is also actually. Hang on, wait a second. While I remember this, matplotlib doesn't block by default.
No, it does, unless you import pylab.
No, it doesn't.
Yes, it does.
No, it doesn't.
Yes, it does. If you do a PLT show, it blocks. PLT show blocks.
Yes, show blocks, but if you don't call show, it doesn't block. So what's the difference between calling show and calling wait? Nothing. They're the same operation.
No.
Yes.
Anyway, that's totally different.
No.
Because when you're doing
the same thing.
Wait, are you talking about .plot?
Calling plt.show and results.wait are literally doing exactly the same thing. If you run matplotlib, if you run matplotlib with a GUI and call plot, it will load the plot in a window and then close it when the Python session terminates. You have to call show to block the GUI thread. It is literally doing exactly the same operation.
But it's different because because plotting takes no time. You're not like giving Python like a job really. the downloading is a job.
No,
Like
it does
it goes
take
up,
time.
and it will take not
It does
really.
take time.
I mean,
It takes the amount of time you want to look at the plot for.
Well, yeah, but I think what Steve is saying, like when you execute a download command, right, and the terminal's unblocked, this thing is happening in the background, and you don't really know how long it's going on for. If you're making a plot, you do plt.plot, plt.plot.
Plot's there.
That's done immediately. So there's
Right.
nothing going on in the background, and you're just choosing when to show it. But it's
Yeah.
not like it could still be running and trying to do the plot. It's already
Yeah.
done.
I mean, it's given you the information that did its job by the fact that the window is open. So you have gotten feedback that it's worked. But in the current implementation of this multi-threading, there is no feedback. You have no idea what's going on.
That is true. It just occurred to me that you were just saying nothing uses threading. Well, that uses threading right there, like that. It's exactly the same thing.
Well, I usually
The GUI is in a separate thread, controlled by threading lock. Under the hood, it is exactly the same operation.
yes, but I usually use show, and it does block, unless you have PyLab.
Right, so we're going to put dot wait. We're going to have the stay functionality, right, by default. That's going to be the new default.
Yeah.
So I have one other question about this API, which looks pretty good, but so we have this import SunPy.net.dataRetriever as dr. Okay, fine. And then we have this dr.fido.search. It seems like there's an extra layer here. What is this? Why do we have to have Fido? And can we name it something else? Because I think it's not really.
No,
I mean,
you could do, if you want to remove that layer, you could do from SunPy.net.dataRetriever import Fido.
Yeah, okay, but I guess what I'm really saying is there's nothing about the word Fido that makes me think of it as a downloading tool. Like it doesn't mean anything.
Please specify a better name.
Yeah, well,
This was after you left, Andy.
We were
stupid.
all getting a bit. It was all getting a bit long in the tooth when we came up with this on Monday.
Okay. Okay, well maybe it's just a case of finding another name for that then.
It means Federated Internet Data Obtainer. It's a background.
It's a dog, Andy. It's a dog. Dog goes and they fetch you things.
Well,
It's the
call it
same
dog
for
then.
a dog.
No.
You
No,
haven't
don't
heard
call
of
it-
Fido as a dog name?
No.
Ah.
What?
I have no idea what you guys are talking about now. Honestly, I'm always a cat person though, so maybe that's why.
Okay.
Well, I mean, it just should be something obvious that puts people in the mind of something that can get you data or search for data. That's all.
Well, like Google.
Yeah, Google. That makes a lot of sense.
Fido is fine. It's short. It's memorable.
It doesn't. No, it's not memorable. It's completely unmemorable. Fido means
Look,
nothing
you've
to
been
me.
worrying about it since Friday, right?
I only just saw it.
And it's stuck in your brain. It's fine.
Don't worry.
I mean-
Once you see the documentation page with a cute little puppy dog cartoon, you'll understand and remember it.
Well, I'm not
Look, at one
convinced. I
point
mean,
we were going to call it Golden Labrador. Right?
you're importing
So
this
this is
module
much-
called data retriever, and then you think, oh, great, it's a data retriever, but then there's this thing underneath that's just called Fido, and it doesn't. I wouldn't know that that's what it's supposed to use. I mean, why is it not data retriever.search? I mean, that would make sense, right?
Well, then I really hate when you have a module that they're the same name. Like it would be SunPy.net.dataRetriever.dataRetriever.
I don't see your problem with this, but
I hate that.
It's a fairly standard thing, though.
it's also they are two separate things. They're different meanings, and also it'd be dr.dataRetriever, which is less obnoxious.
I mean, I'm just saying this doesn't seem quite right now. I don't know what the best solution is.
Okay, well, suggest something better.
Okay. I will think of something. I don't know. But there is a reason why you have to have this Fido level in here.
Yeah. Because Fido is the class. Like, just to think of the module. Inside the module, there's a class called Fido that does the search and stuff.
Yeah. Okay.
And data retriever is just the name of the module, right? The module will contain, it contains time and it contains the clients and things like that. So,
how did it work for VSO? How does it work for VSO?
So VSO, there you import the client class, instantiate it manually.
Yeah.
You do VSO client, or my client equals VSO client, VSO client dot search.
Yeah. That's actually too.
So it's even more long-winded.
Yeah, that's not. Yeah, that's not a great idea. Well, I mean, maybe dog lovers will understand this. It's just me.
Ask Judy. See if Judy gets it.
She's a cat person too.
Yeah, but if she gets it, then you'd be convinced, right?
Is this an American thing or something?
No, it's not American. I don't know where you get this from. Andy, have you been living under a dog
I left
rock?
too early on Friday, clearly, because someone.
No, like, have you just... Dan, help us out here. Fido, right?
Fido, it's Latin for loyal. That's why dogs are called Fido, because they're loyal pets.
See?
Oh.
Oh my god, you guys are
Dan's
so well
had the
educated.
benefit of a classical education, so he knows what I'm talking about.
Well, I am from Scotland, so I guess that
I'm
was.
trying a different tact of persuasion.
I'm from Scotland too, but I opened a book once or twice instead of blowing into a trombone.
See the Wikipedia link in the chat.
Education was better in those days, Jack.
I'm not that old.
Okay, good point, Andy.
Oh man. Okay, well, apparently it's just me who has no clue what's going on here. But,
Yeah, I got my slate and chalk and wrote Fido on it.
I know.
Objection is noted. Ask Albert.
We can be way more unclear. What's the dog's name in Tokyo? They have the statue of that dog next to the train station.
No.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about, Jack?
Yeah, I do, yeah.
So SunPy is going to require some sort of insider knowledge to get it to work.
Look,
That's right.
Python already has a bunch of, like, you pick up a Python book and it's all about spam and eggs. It doesn't make any sense unless you happen to watch, an early 1970s BBC TV comedy program, right? So
Here we go.
Hachiko, yeah.
Hachiko. Hachiko, that search.
It doesn't necessarily mean we should continue this philosophy. Well.
The commit that I linked in the chat for my implementation of fetch blocking by default. To bring the conversation back to something vaguely sane for the next 5 minutes. What the holy link, Batman?
Sorry, it's an image link. It's the statue.
Yeah.
Which I was surprised is not on the Wikipedia page.
Huh. Maybe we should call it Hachiko then.
Very famous dog in Japan.
Never heard of it.
What are we supposed to be looking
a
at?
discussion about this, or are we moving on to another thing?
This link here. The latest commit in 3.18.
So you just make weight equals true and throw up a progress bar. It's a default. Looks all right to me.
Yes, I've made both weight and the progress bar default to on, because blocking without a progress bar is also somewhat opaque to the user, and in fact our progress bar is so bad that actually it's quite bad. It's quite opaque to the user what's going on anyway. We really need to fix that.
Yeah, that progress bar, by the way, is totally broken. It does display something though, so it does show something that changes, but totally broken.
How appropriate is it that the SunPy progress bar is broken?
Well, after this dog conversation, I think it's very appropriate.
I'm quite happy to change the name Fido to something else if someone comes up with a decent suggestion.
Well, Andy's got lunchtime to think about it, so presumably he'll be inspired by going to get a sandwich.
It tickles my sense of humour as is, so I'm relatively happy to leave it alone.
Yeah.
But
I'll be inspired, I promise.
If we're going to continue in this vein, do you mind if I divert it for a moment and just ask a couple quick questions?
Please.
I think we're done here anyway.
First of all, I was just looking at regarding the goes like curve thing. Is there Stuart, you said Steve might have written this before. So Steve, is there a reason why the time range for goes to is wrong for the goes like curve object? It says does say that goes to started in 1981, where there's data from goes to going back to 1980. That means that you can't use the goes like curve to look at 1980 data. Is there a reason for that I'm not aware of?
I think so, though you may want to check to see whether I haven't made a mistake, but those times are based on the data files that are available in Hesperia, where we're grabbing the data. And it looks to me, if I remember correctly, that there was no data further back hosted on Hesperia. It may still exist somewhere, just not available. So the first thing I did was actually use the actual times that the satellites were available, and that broke very quickly because the files were not. So what you could do if you wanted to check is simply just open up the FTP site and look at the files and see, because the goes number is in the file name, so you can see how far back it goes.
Right. So I'm looking at with the umbra.nascom link, and yeah, there are FITS files that go back to the 4th of January 1980, and then there are they're the previous style of FITS files, which the name start with X, and I don't know exactly what they are, but they should be usable, I think.
Okay. Well, if you want to fix it, go ahead and fix it. That would be great.
Right.
Didn't these dates originally come from the NOAA website?
The other question on that was, I'm just trying to understand. I just ran the tests for that module, the test goes.py for the lightcove object, and it breaks.
Oh boy. Are you up to date with master because there are fixes?
Yeah. All right, guys, I have to go to my other meeting. So.
All right. Well, I'll look into that test a bit more and try and understand a bit better why it fails. There's like a value error. It says it can't read a particular file, which I'm not sure why it's being asked for. The other thing I just wanted to mention, which we can talk about or not, was did anyone see Richard's email from like a week ago? Did he send that to the Google groups? It was actually just to me. I think he actually sent it just to me. Basically, he's asking for, as part of the poster at TESS, he wants to see a discussion or some sort of outline on what SunPy can't do and doesn't intend on doing, and also knowing what its capabilities are and planned future capabilities are. Did anyone else see that email?
No, he just sent it to you. He wants an email about what SunPy can't do.
Yeah, I will send
sorry, I mean, like, he wants that on the poster.
I don't think they were going to put that on a poster.
He says possibly just in some sort of spreadsheet or something. Anyway, I just wanted to open the discussion or mention that this has been asked for by Richard. There's a number
Is he
of
a co-author on the poster?
Sorry?
Is he a co-author on the poster?
Okay, no, as far as I was aware, but I'm just mentioning that this information is just being asked for. in a more general sense than just the poster.
Anyone else asked for it?
I guess I'm asking, do we actually have a list of intended future capabilities, or do we have nothing that formal at this moment?
Well, we have a roadmap, don't we, of sorts? I don't know how up to date that is. It's on the wiki, I think.
Okay. Well, I'm just asking what's out there, what's available.
I mean, we have some. Stuart can probably answer this better. We do have some pretty clear things in mind for what a version 1.0 would have to include, right?
Yeah, it's in the wiki.
Right.
Probably needs updating, but it's in the wiki.
Right. I mean, in all respects to Richard, I don't think it's really our place to emphasize what we can't do.
Yeah.
I think you could take that under advisement, but file it away.
I'm not making it a personal thing. I'm just asking the question. That's all I'm doing.
Sure.
Well, I don't think such a post. I don't think it's useful for. Like, there's the list of things that SunPy can't do is infinite, and the list of things that SolarSoft can't do is also infinite. So it makes no sense to.
The comment regarding things that we plan never to do is valid.
Yes.
Um,
So what are we planning on doing and not doing philosophically?
I think it's easier to have a list of, describe what SunPy is going to do. Like anything else will come out from the users. Like if the users want X,
we don't
then
particularly philosophically have a list of things we have decided we're not going to do.
that's true.
I have a list in my head, but it's pretty vague.
But there are these things that exist.
The one thing there are some things that we are definitely not going to do, and that's going to be things like put lots of data in the main SunPy distribution and like deal with updating flat fields and stuff like that inside SunPy is never going to happen. You're never going to be able to get the latest flat field by downloading SunPy.
But so such a statement could be translated into, we're going to maintain better, or we're going to make a better division between the data required to do solar physics and the code required to do solar physics, right? So that would be one way of like implementing, or of saying that in a poster, Dan.
Yeah, well, at the moment, again, I'm not too worried about the poster specifically. It was just something that has been asked and something I don't know, and I think is a valid discussion. Maybe not this exact moment because we're running into an hour, but it could be useful, just to think that out.
Yeah, I think
So that we can answer questions when people ask them,
Well, the wiki should have that, right? It should have the.
Can someone send me a link to the wiki then?
Yeah, I think the affiliated packages concept that we've been discussing is also a good guide to what our sort of philosophy is, where SunPy wants to provide core functionality, but not necessarily everything for every instrument. That would be something that hopefully other, collaborators would be involved with and affiliate with SunPy.
This is true. This is also true, but the reason I didn't bring that up was because that is currently very badly defined.
True.
But it is true, and someone really needs to modify the AstroPy package template for SunPy so that there is a package template for people who want to start writing that kind of packages. Like our Ginga viewer doesn't have a package, really. at the moment. Like that really could do with packaging and releasing. We need. It's probable that one of my friends that I'm working with at the moment might be releasing a magnetic field potential field extrapolation code as a SunPy affiliated package sometime in the next 6 months. Again, stuff like that would never get put into SunPy core because it's moving goalposts.
Right. No, and I think this is an interesting thing to try and clarify a bit, because I think talking to people myself about it, I think there is somewhat of a lack of. People think of SunPy, oh, it's SSW Python, essentially. And so, like, I was having a discussion with someone, and they're talking about, well, calibration things with different instruments, they're constantly being changed all the time. So, if you change them, you've got to change your tests in SunPy, all the time as well. And so when we're talking about not like the SunPy core not having a lot of very instrument-specific stuff, us knowing that or clarifying that can be useful, because other people don't necessarily know what we want to do and what SunPy is trying to be, and that can cause confusion and frustration.
Part of that problem is because we haven't actually come up with that ourselves to a large extent, which is we should do. But every time we go down that road, if you look through the mailing list archives, some of the longest, most complicated, never-ending discussions we've had have been chasing down that tail. Like, we just go round in circles for days, for weeks. I'm going to find a particular thread I'm thinking of now because it's funny. I haven't looked at it in a long time.
And I think this is, whether Richard intended to raise this or not, like, it is like a good point that, like, we need to define a little bit more what what we're going to include in core SunPy and not. So, like, because let's face it, like, the SolarSoft kind of idea is just everything goes in, right? Whatever you need, it just goes in.
Right.
Wherever you need it to work, it goes in, and that's why there's like 2 files which have the same name that do slightly different things or completely different things, but like your branch works for your instrument, so that's that. But we're trying. I think we have like almost like the opposite view that we're trying to minimize as much as possible what's in core SunPy, and then really set a high bar for what we keep in there. But that needs to be, we need to write that down formally somewhere so people get a really good idea.
I thought would make the conversation helpful, because if we don't know what's going on, then or if we don't have an idea at least of what we're working towards, then it's very hard to explain it to people who just are first trying to understand what it is that SunPy is.
Yeah.
Especially coming from an SSW and an RDO background. And
okay.
So yeah, we can discuss that a bit more if we feel like it.
It sounds like the SunPy board should meet.
Yes, we should.
Yes, we should. It is true.
Is everyone going to test?
Planning to.
Yeah.
Yes, Stuart going to test?
No. Where is it?
Indianapolis.
It's in Indianapolis.
When is it?
Mid-April?
It's the week after the meeting in Leiden.
If it had been like a month earlier, I could have pulled it off, but I can't. Really. I don't really have the money anymore. My travel money technically disappears at the end of March.
No. Stuart, just to change the subject, pull request 1288 co-alignment functionality refactor has passed.
Only what now?
Co-alignment refactoring has passed all the tests, and I want my PR accepted. Or are we not going to accept any PRs today?
Well, his landscape bot never shuts up, does he? Well, I'm okay with it. I've already +1'd it. Someone else needs to look over it.
Okay.
Well, actually, I should probably look over it again because you've changed things since, you know.
All right. Well, leave that for next week then.
I will look over it. Oh, you've got the AstroPy helpers thing in there again.
Oh, okay. I'll fix that.
I will review that properly. Again, mainly the tests, I think, is the only thing that's changed, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh. Right. Yes. This needs reviewing.
$10.97. I got +1 from Steve. That's good.
Your wherever it's hiding. It's so far down, it's on the second page. We have too many pull requests again.
Well, this one was opened a while ago. It fails, but it's the goes stuff. Yes, that's been
fixed now. If you probably
Can we rerun the tests?
maybe I don't think you can rerun. Just rebase it, Andy. Got any funky merges in this anyway?
You may have to remind me how to do that.
Just merge master into it, Andy. That'll fix it.
Okay. Okay, done.
I'll rerun. Basically, people should review pull requests. That's about it, really. I think apart from that, we'll probably call it. Unless anyone else has anything to say.
Nope.
Yep.
I'm very happy to go for dinner.
All right then.
Alright.
If anyone else has any suggestions or reviews on the unified downloader 1318, the API PR, it'd be good to merge that, and then we can start working on documentation and stuff. All right then.
Okay.
Speak to you later.
See ya.
All right.